Hello, my name is David, but you can call me Skiff, and welcome back to another episode of Notflix, the show about other shows. Today we are discussing Netflix's original series, Insatiable, Season 1, Episode 11, Winners Win, period. And if you haven't watched the episode yet, I'm going to warn you now, go ahead and do that, because there will be spoilers. But if you have watched the episode, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Now, the last time we saw Patti, she had just finished blowing up Bob and Christopher Gorham's secret to everybody and revealing that they were gay at her birthday roast. And I can't believe I forgot to discuss, Dixie, like I thought, was not paralyzed and was just pretending to be paralyzed from the waist down. So that sneaking suspicion did actually turn out to be true, which again did not surprise me. So flashing forward to this week, Patti is distraught and is eating her feelings. And that's sort of where we ended the episode on the last episode as well, where we saw Patti start to begin this pattern of destructive behavior over again, where she binge eats. And this week, she hasn't left the house in a week, and she has been eating her feelings, and she says that her pants have already begun to not fit. Now, this is where I think this show can become a little bit problematic. And it's hard to decipher whether or not they have done this in a meaningful way, or if they have done this just for the purposes of storytelling, and if they've done this in a responsible way. Now, whether or not they've done it in a responsible way, I don't believe they have when it comes to persons with eating disorders. I think it can be a little bit tricky to handle that responsibly in terms of storytelling. It can be a difficult thing, I think, in general as a story plot point. So I think it's always hard, whether the eating disorder be anorexia, bulimia, or overeating. It's hard to incorporate that into a story and allow it to propel a story forward as being the only plot point. And it's just a little bit difficult because when it comes to patterns of behavior and why people turn to destructive behavior such as this one, binge eating being this destructive behavior, I think that the way that they handled it by having her surrounded by food can just be a little bit unrealistic in the way that people who struggle with this on a day-to-day basis might see this as being a little bit offensive. Now, in terms of it being a television show and it being a story plot point, I think that we so often forget that if we're not hit over the head, for lack of a better metaphor, with what is going on, we sometimes can forget as an audience member what a character can be struggling with. And so generally speaking, when things like this occur, it's easier to take the more dramatic route and use that as a visual representation of what has been going on in the character's life. It isn't necessarily to say that a person who struggles with binge eating on a day-to-day basis is going to surround themselves by a table of food, but as a visual representation, it does help. I hope that I'm not being offensive to anybody, and I hope I'm being sensitive to someone who may actually be struggling with this. And just know that I'm not here making fun of you, and I don't think that that was the intention of the makers of this show, was to poke fun at somebody who may be struggling with this. Now, that being said, if we set that aside as an audience member, Patti is reeling and she doesn't know what to do. She has sequestered herself in her house. She's not speaking to anybody. And she sort of comes to this revelation by way of Drew Barrymore coming into town for a book signing. And she comes to this revelation that it's time for her to start making amends with people. Now, she can't do that with Bob first because obviously she has destroyed his life in a way that is unimaginable to her at this moment, but she can start with her best friend, Nani. Now, Nani is not answering her calls, so she enlists the help of Donald to sort of trick Nani into meeting up with Patti at the Wiener Taco. And it is at this point that we are met with Christian, who is starting to show some stalker-ish tendencies and some clingy tendencies, because this is where we get the information revealed to us that Patti hasn't left her house in a week, and he's got a birthday present for her, and she says to him, you know what, I don't want anything to do with you. Stop calling me, stop texting me, not responding to you should have been your answer, and leave me alone. She enters the Wiener Taco, and she's sort of met with the same response from Nani that if I haven't responded to you yet, you should know that don't want to talk to you. And Nani has every right to say that to her. She decided that she wanted to take a break from their friendship, and she says to her, it's up to me when to decide and whether to decide if this is going to work and if this is going to continue, and I don't want to attend this Drew Barrymore signing with you. So I will get in touch with you if and when I want to. Is that fair? It's hard to say, but having been in this position myself, on both ends, I believe, I think it is best to give people their space and allow people to come to terms with their own decision-making and allow them to decide what they want to do, especially if it's someone who's been a friend for such a long period of time in your life. I think it's only fair for you to give them the space that they need and the space that they've been asking for to figure things out for themselves. I mean, Nani has a lot going on in her life, right? She's just recently realized that she was gay, and she's in a new relationship, and so things are changing for her, and she's starting to realize that maybe her best friend hasn't been the best friend she thought she was. So there's a lot going on, and Patti needs to be respectful of that, and I think that she wants things to sort of speed up and things to happen at a quicker pace than things are going to be occurring. That's a little bit muddied, but that's the only way I can sort of wrap my brain around it. Now, it's here where Patti also runs into Alyssa Milano, and she wants to then make amends with Alyssa Milano because she's there. And again, I think this is where it can become a little bit problematic again with this show, where Patti reveals to Alyssa Milano that despite having lost the weight and despite having gotten new friends and despite having finally feeling pretty, she still feels like a loser, and she still thinks that she needs pageants to prove herself, but there's nothing she can do about it now because she's gained all this weight and she's needs to lose 10 pounds before regionals. Now, instead of handling this in a, I think, responsible fashion of maybe saying, you know, you don't need to lose 10 pounds to be beautiful, and you can still compete in regionals and have that extra weight on you. Coralie, Alyssa Milano, refers her to her son, Brick, who is a wrestler, and wrestlers are notorious, I think, from what I remember and from what I understand, wrestlers are notorious for needing to lose weight very quickly so they can compete in lower weight classes. So she enlists Brick's help to do some not safe things to lose weight quickly. Starvation, working out with trash bags around you, using diuretics. I mean, all of these things combined together can be very harmful to somebody and harmful to your body, and is just another form of eating disorder. So again, I think it's an irresponsible thing for a television show to be portraying, but at the same time, it is sort of a realistic thing that happens in the sports world. So is it that problematic for them to be discussing it? Or is it just a real world truth that when we are faced with it head on, we become uncomfortable? I think you can see it both ways. At least I can see it both ways, where discussing it is not discussing it in the proper way is problematic, but also then showing it to us as a lens of ourselves and who we are as a society, where we value beauty and thinness at this point, I guess, and achieving your beauty goals by any means necessary. It's hard to say, but that is sort of the reality of this world and of this show, so I don't want to fault them for that. Now again, it is at this point where Patti is confronted by Christian, to which Brick comes to her rescue and beats Christian up and says to her, you know, if he shows up again, just give me a call. And then she goes home and there's the present on her bed. After trying to apologize to Bob and being confronted with the fact that he's not willing or ready or able to even apologize to her for her exploding the entire life that he has known up until this point, that Bob is now going to be coaching Roxie in regionals, and she's sort of on her own. That she then decides that her only way to win regionals is if she gets rid of Roxie. So she comes up with this plan, and she even says it herself that she doesn't know whether it's the not eating or the the extensive working out that has made her brain fuzzy, but she decides to steal the Wiener taco truck and kidnap Roxie, which is insane. But this is sort of where our episode ends, and she tases Roxie at the gym after Roxie has left the gym, and then she is shot with what one can only assume is a tranquilizer. A trank dart? I don't know what you'd call it. I think just a tranquilizer. Now, not to minimize any of the other storylines, because I will discuss that as well, it just seems that where we're going with this storyline and whether or not it's a storyline that I want to continue to see is that Christian is then going to become this crazed boyfriend who kidnaps his girlfriend while his girlfriend, or kidnaps not his girlfriend, someone that he used to date, while his ex-girlfriend or the one that he loves is trying to kidnap somebody else. I mean, it's just crazy and a little bit convoluted and a little bit confusing, but I guess we'll have to see where that storyline goes. But as far as like the Bob and the Christopher Gorham storyline goes, Bob is still sort of trying to figure out throughout this entire episode how to deal with the loss of his wife and how to deal with the loss of his life as he knew it and how to begin this new chapter in his life, because he keeps arguing that he's not gay, that he's bisexual, and that he has love for Christopher Gorham's character, but he also feels the same love for Alyssa Milano's character, and he doesn't want to lose his wife, and he doesn't want to get a divorce, but he doesn't want to lose Christopher Gorham. It's sort of like he wants to have both people in his life because he loves them and he needs them both in his life. And, you know, that's fair to think that, but I do think that it is unfair for you to expect those two people to be okay with it. And someone who's not okay with it is Brick. Brick is unhappy with the way things have been handled. He doesn't care that his father is gay. He just cares about the way that it was all handled and how he feels like he has been lied to and that his mother has been lied to, and he just feels betrayed at this point, which is also, again, understandable. Magnolia, on the other hand, is sort of handling these things, this new information fairly well, and she tells her father that, you know, I think it's time to fold in Roxie into our lives if she is willing and wants to be part of it. Which we then find out, like, Stella Rose lied to Roxie and didn't have to put the Roxie as a baby up for adoption and blah, blah, blah. So she ends up with Bob and Christopher Gorham, and I think what's going to happen with these two characters, the two Bobs, is that in the next season, they are going to have their own pageant coaching business. It just sort of seems like that's where they're taking the two characters, because they sort of have this night out at a gay bar where Bob is very uncomfortable and Christopher Gorham is like, these are your people, and he's like, no, they're not. You're my people, but those people are not my people, which is fine. That world of house music and clubbing and dancing shirtless and drugs and rock and roll and sex is not for everybody, nor should it be, and it's okay for him to not want to be part of that world. But he does then decide that, or say that he and his newfound boyfriend can coach Roxie to win. Alyssa Milano decides that she's going to divorce Bob, and she enlists the help of Bob's father because she thinks this is the only way for her to get her seed money for her new business, her new Tampazzle business. And Christopher Gorham then decides that they need a sort of adult mediation where they then discuss what is going to happen with the three of them. And Alyssa Milano says to Bob that she doesn't want to lose her husband and that none of this means anything if she doesn't have him in her life. But Bob is unwilling to get rid of Bob and kick Christopher Gorham out of his life. And Alyssa Milano is then confronted with the fact that she also has feelings for Christopher Gorham while she still remains having feelings for her husband, Bob. And Christopher Gorham then reveals he has feelings for Alyssa Milano. And then it's sort of, we're left with the idea that these three people are going to have a throuple. And that is very progressive, and I think is a very interesting way to take these three characters and make it all work for all three parties involved. And I think that that's great. Now, where we're going to be going in our final episode, I have no idea. But I guess we'll see. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Notflix. If you enjoyed yourself here, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification so you can get notified every single time I upload a new video. If you want to keep up with me on a more regular basis, you can find me across all social media platforms that you can call me Skiff. If you want to be a friend, tell a friend. We will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.